Hello, everyone. This is Sartaj Anand, the founder of EgoMonk, and welcome to Business Beyond 2030, the show where we explore the socioeconomic and technological revolutions shaping our world and the role of business in realizing the future. Business has the transformative ability to move all of us from today to tomorrow with a shared purpose. And I have the privilege to unpack complexity with the world's smartest and most compassionate business leaders and decision makers as they deliver on their promise of abundance. We are fortunate to have Guru Bhatt with us today. Guru joined PayPal in 2015 and currently leads their technology centers in Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad. He is also the Vice President of Engineering for PayPal's Transaction Orchestration and Platforms Organization. Guru comes with more than 25 years of experience in the technology sector and is responsible for driving PayPal's technology strategy as the company builds out next-generation payment solutions and services. He maintains an avid interest in sports, books, movies, music, and pretty much anything that makes life joyful and interesting. Guru also recently joined the ranks of those addicted to long-distance running. Thanks so much, Guru, for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you, Sartaj. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here.
So we'll start off with PayPal being featured on the Great Places to Work list in 2019. What makes PayPal so great?
So I'll preface that by saying that it's the 11th year in a row that we've been featured on the Great Places to Work list, and we are one of the few organizations in India that have had such a win streak, if you will. I think what makes PayPal great is that it's a company with a heart and a soul. We have very unique values that we try to live by every single day in everything that we do. Our values are around wellness, innovation, inclusion, and these are things that I think a lot of companies don't really pay attention to. Wellness is such an interesting cultural value to say that the company values the wellness in every which way in its employees is something that I don't think a lot of companies pay attention to. For us, it's the way we live every day. Inclusion, obviously, we have a diverse customer base around the world, 203 different markets around the world that we are present in, different nationalities, different ethnicities, different cultures that we need to cater to. So if our workforce doesn't mirror that kind of diversity, then we are going to let some of our customers down. That's why inclusion and diversity is such a huge aspect of what we do and why we do things the way we do it. And of course, collaboration and innovation are essential in today's work environment. Innovation is essential because we are in a very hot space in the world today, and unless we are 2 steps, 10 steps, 100 steps ahead of the competition, then we are toast. So innovation is something that is very, very essential. And of course, we're all humans at the workplace. People change the world. Technology doesn't. And how people use technology, yes, that changes the world. So I think for us to enable a very collaborative, very cohesive environment where people can do the best work of their lives while having the time of their lives, I think that's what keeps us on the Great Places to Work list year after year after year.
I'm so glad you brought up wellness, because I think wellness is what you need for longevity. Technology is usually viewed as a short time frame. You have to move fast, break things, but you can't scale with that. You can't keep going with that for 10 years, 11 years. So
that's right.
I'm glad you brought that up. For all the smart and upcoming professionals who are going to hear this episode, why do you think they should consider applying to join the PayPal family?
To use a very popular and favorite phrase of mine, you have to join PayPal because it's a happy place. And guess what? If you put happy and place together, there's PYPL right in the middle. That's our ticker symbol. I think what differentiates us from other employers, and I'm not saying that there aren't other great companies. There are many, and many of whom that we need to learn from as well. But we're in a hot space. We operate at a scale that is that very few other companies can operate at. That gives people a wealth of challenges and very, very interesting work that they can do. But that's not enough. Where people they want to do great work, obviously, but they also want to be very happy while doing it. And PayPal provides an environment where people are trusted, they are cared for, and they're empowered to do work that is extremely interesting. And so that cocktail of wonderful circumstances is what PayPal provides, which is why people should join us.
I feel like applying now. So this segues quite nicely into the next question, which is millennials and digital natives are big believers in the role of business to realize progress. So when you come to work at PayPal every day, what is that purpose that motivates you and keeps you going?
I think for me it is, I've reached a stage in my career where I genuinely do get a kick out of seeing other people fly higher and higher. And to see a lot of young people in our company. We have a very young workforce in India. Our average age is around 26, which makes for a very interesting work environment for somebody who's born on the wrong side of 1980 like I am. But it also motivates us and inspires us because you see so many young people driven with such a huge sense of purpose around what they do, and also such ingrained maturity around how they approach the world around them. It's actually inspiring because I look back and say, oh my God, when I was 25 or 26, was I as mature as this? The answer is absolutely not. I wasn't. So what keeps me going is coming in and finding ways to stay relevant in spite of being several years older than them, and also teaching them a thing or two, right? Like, obviously, there are some advantages to acquiring some gray hair on your head. And,
experience counts.
That's right, it does. And so I have a variety of ways in which I try to keep myself relevant and try to keep learning from them while at the same time trying to add value to them. So interestingly, when you have a name like Guru, it affords you a few creative liberties as well. So I have a unique program where every week I have 4 hours of my calendar blocked off for meetings with anybody who chooses to come and meet with me.
Open office.
They can come in, grab time in 30, 60, 90-minute chunks. The agenda is very free form. The only requirement is that they should come and teach me something.
Okay.
And in return, I'll talk to them, I'll mentor them, I'll give them advice, I'll talk about certain things that I'm good at, which is, how to present, how to influence, etc., how to build a network. And I call this program Be a Guru to Guru. And it's wildly popular. I don't ever have a slot that is not taken, and it's a great opportunity for me to learn from the millennials.
Yeah,
I've had people coming in teaching me new age programming languages, new frameworks, new technologies, new ways of managing products. Those are the hard technical stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've also had people come in, talk about financial wellness, mindfulness. Somebody wanted to teach me yoga.
Yeah.
And I deliberately, I've taken a call to never constrain the topic. It can be anything that is near and dear to the person who wants to meet me. And I think this has been a good way for me to stay connected to what's hip and happening, if you will.
It sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
I think that's a great hack about staying relevant and current, because I think young people, particularly these mature millennials that you seem to have in your workforce, they are on the pulse of what's changing.
Correct.
So that's great. Any productivity hacks? Because as a senior leader, you tend to get bogged down with so many roles, responsibilities. How do you stay productive mentally and physically?
For me, it is definitely taking comfort in routine. And I'm not saying that this is something that everybody can use as a recipe for their own productivity. For me, I'm a creature of habit. I like to wake up at the same time every day. I like to go to the gym every day. And I like to eat the same breakfast every day. I mean, it makes me, I'm sure a bunch of your listeners now are going to say, oh my God, what a boring guy.
You're just minimizing choice. That's
right.
It.
That's exactly it. Yes. And it gives me a certain degree of comfort to do those things every day in the same way, because it clears up mind space to plan my day, kind of have a mental map of what I'm going to do that day, who I'm going to meet, what I'm going to talk about, and what I'm hoping to learn. And that really helps me structure my day, and hopefully it's making a difference and making me a little more productive. At any rate, it's keeping me sane and stress-free, and that's a good win right there.
Yeah, that's an immediate win. That's interesting. Automating small life choices so that you can just focus on the bigger picture. I think people, when they care deeply about the work that they do and in a right supportive environment, they get to do the best work of their life. And PayPal seems to be at that intersection, at that nexus.
Yeah.
So in that context, what's your approach to leadership and building that sort of happy work culture at PayPal?
I think it's, a few years ago when I was thinking about what it takes to lead a big organization, and a few things became very apparent to me the harder I thought about it. People work to make a livelihood, for sure. They want to put food on the table. They want to take care of their loved ones. They want to plan for retirement, any health uncertainties. And definitely that's an important. So money is an important part, right? The second thing is they want to constantly add value to themselves in terms of becoming more valuable, which means that they like to do interesting work that keeps them relevant and keeps them future-proof. So if you look at these two elements are not unique to any company. If I'm working at a company, some other company can come in and tell me that I'll pay you more, or they can tell me that, hey, the work that I'm going to have you do in my company is better than what you're doing today. So those two are not factors that will keep people in a company. What is most important, I realize from my own experience, is do you have a sense of family and a sense of community and a sense of psychological safety in your job? If you have those are extremely sticky. So you are not likely to take a risk if you have them, because going out somewhere, you're not guaranteed to get that particular aspect.
These are differentiators.
These are differentiators. You might get more money, you might get better work to do, but you might have a horrible time doing them. You might work with...
You might burn out trying to do it.
That's right. So creating an environment where you can have these aspects be an extremely vibrant part of your culture is, I think, what creates great workspaces where people want to work and want to work for a long time. So my leadership philosophy is around creating a zone where you're valued for being a good human being first and foremost, and secondly, you're valued for being the kind of person who loves your job, loves your company, loves your co-workers, and wants to see them succeed selflessly, if you will, in some way, and derives genuine joy from seeing other people succeed, and that includes your customers.
Yeah.
And if you're able to create a culture that values and creates more people like that, then I think you've got a winning recipe for creating a great company that's sustainable in the long run.
So on the flip side, like you mentioned, technology is at that pulse of ambition, right? It has the most mobility, it has the most opportunity, it has the most competition. It's natural with these high performance sort of targets and goals that conflict is sometimes an outcome or a byproduct. How do you manage conflict in such an environment? You want it to be supportive, you want it to be constructive. So how do you manage conflict or differences in opinion at PayPal?
I think there are certain bedrock principles that if you don't compromise, I think conflict is actually healthy, because a certain degree of conflict means that there are people challenging the status quo and they're allowing newer ideas to flourish, where if you just have a conformist culture, then you're just going to get more of the same, and at some point you'll hit a dead end and you'll end up crashing and burning, right? So conflict is good, and I think it starts from that particular accepting that fact that conflict is good. But now, how do you do it in a respectful way where you are always looking at what's right for the customer, what's right for the company, and how can you engage in conflict without it humiliating or demeaning somebody, right? Nothing good comes from ever, making somebody feel smaller than they are. And if your conflict goes into the zone of making somebody feel a little less about themselves, then that's the wrong kind of conflict. So I think while engaging in conflict, the training that everybody needs to have and practice is articulating the why. Why is it that you're articulating a certain position? Being able to say that out loudly, clearly, in a very respectful tone will then set the framework, and then people will then not take things personally. They'll debate the issue rather than the person. So
remove ego from that equation as much as possible, at least.
And try to be purpose-centric, right? Always talk about the why. And train people to say that whenever you're talking about something passionately, first talk about the why rather than the what and the how.
Yeah. I think that's an important point, because oftentimes we've done this experiment of inversion. You always sort of even challenge yourself, saying, okay, if this were this hypothetical situation that I do not desire. If I want to plan for it, I have to invert it. I have to assume I'm wrong and put myself in someone else's shoes.
Right.
So I'm glad that you have this approach to conflict management, which is grounded in respect, because oftentimes we've seen managers across the level of power sort of exploit it or build a conformist culture. And I think yes men ultimately lead to lower paces of innovation, and there are many challenges. So
Correct.
I'm glad that this is a healthy way of approaching it.
I think respect also coupled with a disarming dose of humility, I'd say, right? Each of us has to not take life so seriously or ourselves so seriously that we believe we have all the answers. It's always good to know that we could be wrong.
Yeah. So you're a technologist. That's been sort of the common thread or DNA. When you look at 2030, which is just a decade away, what sort of emerging technologies excite you?
That's a $1 million question, right? Like if I could put my money behind it, probably 10 years from now, I'd be reaping the rewards. I think there are a lot of technologies that I love the way they are shaping today, and I'm going to assume, and maybe this is a blind leap of faith in some sense, that they will continue to evolve and reach tipping points by the year 2030. So if I look at the key trends today that are definitely going to make a mark 10 years from now, artificial intelligence is going to be one of them. The ways in which machines are being taught to learn and teach themselves to learn is getting more and more sophisticated, and they will at a point be able to mimic human intuition in practically every realm of life. And there will be a tipping point which is known as singularity, where the ability of a computer to far surpass a human's thought, the ability to think, is going to actually happen at some point. And most experts do predict that it will be somewhere in the 2030s, even if it's not 2030 itself. And I'm guessing that will be the case, right? Now, coupled with that, what are certain other advances that are happening? Robotics is one that is getting, the robots are becoming more and more sophisticated. They're becoming more and more humanoid, which then is making them more and more accepted and acceptable to humans. Then there's augmented reality and virtual reality, which has tended to stay in the realm of hype and entertainment.
It's going to mature,
now.
probably.
It is going to mature, and the applications, as they mature, the applications are also going to become more and more sophisticated. And then you've got the Internet of Things. More than 1 trillion devices will eventually get connected to the internet. Now we have our connected watches and our phones, and every sensor on the planet, your clothes, who knows, everything might get connected. So my excitement is not so much in the technologies that are going to rule in 2030, but my excitement is more around how a concatenation of these technologies, a collaboration between these technologies, can hopefully tremendously advance the way mankind is leading life on this planet. And I say that because there are two things that we are definitely seeing a downward trend in. One is, while people are living longer lives, they're living more stressful lives. They're living maybe slightly more unhealthier lives, right?
Yeah, the quality of life
is decreasing. So if we could ensure that technology actually helps us lead better lives, that would be a great outcome. The second is, we are posing an incredible load on the planet with our rampant consumerism.
Yeah.
All the applications of technology until now have been around a blind consumption-driven economy that is continuing to put a very heavy load on the planet. Now, is there a way we can actually use technology to reduce the burden on the planet so that we can create a sustainable future that our great-grandchildren can enjoy the planet as much as we are, and hopefully much more than we are?
Yeah. I think I totally agree on artificial general intelligence kicking in. Ray Kurzweil speaks a lot about the singularity, and he talks about, it was 2045 originally. He's pulling it sooner because he's seen this rapid maturation occur. So I think we're living in interesting times, and I think by 2030 it's only going to get more accelerated.
That's right. And the pace of acceleration is also increasing, right? Like it's an interesting concept where you think things are going way too fast, but then you also have to realize that it's never going to be as slow ever again. This is as slow as it's going to get. Yeah. And then it's going to get even faster and faster and faster.
I completely agree. So Peter Thiel talks about how the last few decades have been the decades of bits, where before that was the decades of atoms.
Right.
And now that pace, as you said, is going to increase more and more and more. And we don't know what's coming next.
That's right.
We might see crypto, we might see a blockchain, we might see all of these technologies suddenly mature and realize in real use cases.
That's right.
So what's the next breakthrough that you think is imminent? Like from a technology perspective, are we seeing something that's sort of going to cross the barrier of hype soon?
You mentioned a few of them already, right? Like if you look at cryptocurrencies, which are blockchain based, I think there's been healthy and maybe sometimes some would say unhealthy levels of interest in them and speculation in them. All of this is obviously the sign of technology that is gathering momentum and steam, and early adopters are generally, they tend to be irrationally exuberant, if you will, towards that technology, and
very risk averse.
That's right. And slowly you're going to see that these technologies, the hype curve will trend downwards, and then the maturity actually kicks in, and then you'll have the hockey stick growth. So I think these are technologies where you will definitely see greater and greater adoption as you go forward. And if you look at how things are evolving, as humans, we've all been used to going ahead and using products. And I mean, you take any product, you will like certain aspects of the product, and then you will wonder why the manufacturer did not include one or two other features that would have made it even better for you. Yeah. For you, right? That's the key. Whereas another person could be looking at the same product and looking at something else and saying, this sucks, but I wish they had something else. I think, yes, you hit on the right point. We are moving into an era where the personalization and the hyper-personalization, if you will, of practically everything that we use as a service is going to become a reality, simply because data is available to tailor, and at scale you can build platforms that will personalize every experience for you. So that's going to be an interesting time as well, where a sense of want around a product will now be like delight all the time, because every product experience can be tailored towards you. Yeah. And the best thing about working in technology is that you don't know what's coming next, but at the same time you have the excitement of being able to try a few things to influence what's coming next, and that's one of the parts of my role at PayPal that I truly enjoy.
So let's dial it back. You mentioned you were born on the wrong side of 1980. So if you were 18 today and you were just starting out on this great tech journey, what skill set would you try to develop?
That's a good one. I think if I were to start out today, what would I like? I'd love to know how to sell. That's a skill that I don't have, and I feel that's one skill that I definitely need to develop. I wish I had developed it earlier, right? And being able to do that truly makes you a rounded leader for sure. That's one skill I might have tried to build into my skill set earlier if I had the chance.
And what programming language would you learn now?
I'd want to learn Python.
Okay.
This has been on my to-do list for a long time. In fact, I've got a 13-year-old daughter, my second one, and she's very STEM-oriented. So she and I have a pact that we are going to learn Python together. The only problem is she's already ahead of me, and she started learning, and I've just been keeping it as a promise.
You've been busy.
That's right. No, I've been lazy is how I put it. But I'd have to join her, and I definitely want to learn Python.
Great. And what problem do you see that you would try to solve using technology?
Okay, here's the dad in me speaking, I guess. I've got two teenage daughters, and I see them addicted to smartphones, right? The world of Instagram, the world of Snapchat is one that I probably don't understand.
Yeah, you're not a fan of the attention economy.
That's right, and I'm not. And when I see them being so addicted, I keep wishing there was a way to use technology to make childhood what it should be, which is all about discovery and curiosity and learning rather than peer pressure and a certain image-based economy, right? So I wish I could use technology. If I were 18 and I was looking at a massive problem that can change the world, this would probably come out as one that I would love to solve.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Like even Apple has highlighted, screen addiction and so many phenomena. So for people who are listening and who want to help, this could be the next billion-dollar idea.
That's right. I would pay all the money I can spare if I can wean my daughters off their screens. Yes.
Sure. Let's go into a different direction, which is not all corporations or organizations have the ability to tackle all their problems. I know PayPal has been running an incubator for the past few years, and you've been sort of trying to support and nurture the local startup ecosystem. What's been your approach to managing that process? How are you leveraging sort of co-innovation or open innovation?
So we have had a very satisfying incubator program that we've been running. It's an obligation-free environment that we support our startups in. We don't take any stake in them. We don't expect them to give us anything. It's all about finding the right startups that can come in. We have space in our 3 centers. Yesterday we also launched our Hyderabad center day before yesterday, and we have an incubator in each of our centers. The idea is startups that are either in fintech or in adjacencies that are interesting to us, big data analytics, security, any of these domains that are interesting, credit, lending within fintech. So we don't necessarily want to constrain the startups, but at the same time we want it to be relevant to our business and the mission and vision that we have. So we want to bring in these startups, and we have spaces where they can come in, they can work with their teams, work with the other startups there. We provide them with mentorship, we provide them with connections to the venture capital ecosystem that we are pretty closely connected to. We provide them avenues through which they can meet other clients that we might be able to connect them with some level of credibility that we can give as PayPal, introducing them. So we have a variety of ways in which we are trying to support these startups. The idea is to, one, definitely pay it forward, try to find a way, because we were a very successful startup. Our DNA is definitely, in Silicon Valley, where the PayPal mafia, as you know them, have been responsible for some of the best and the biggest companies in the world today.
Generating a lot of economic value for the global ecosystem.
That's right. So we want to stay true to our roots and help other startups which are going through the same journey, definitely. The second is we want to learn from them, because as a big fintech company with presence all over the world, we are kind of beholden to the kind of market we have helped create. There may be other avenues for us to reimagine money that these companies are beginning to play with. So it's a way for us to observe them, to also see how we can contribute to that process. We've had 15 startups graduate from our incubator so far. Many of them have been phenomenally successful in either being able to raise money or being acquired by other really good companies. So we are very proud of the incubator and the work that we've been doing. One of the guys on my team, Pradeep, runs it, and he does a fabulous job. And we are, in fact, about to look for our next cohort of startups to join us, both in Bangalore and Hyderabad, and of course in Chennai as well. Great.
PayPal is also focused a lot on the developer ecosystem because that's a gateway to a whole new set of customers. It's strategically important. How do you think about leveraging that dev ecosystem?
No, I think this is one aspect of running a massive B2C company in today's world, which is, which, as you said, is one of those things where you are able to multiply the effect of your work through the work of others, right? So for any big company, and you want to scale, you can't go it alone. You need to bring in the developers. They need to be able to integrate for us, the small and medium-sized businesses, they're extremely important. Most of these companies don't have their own big IT teams that they can use to build integrations into PayPal. We have several APIs, public-facing APIs that people can use to integrate. And then there's a wonderful layer in the middle, which are the developers who are happy to do this work and make their livelihood by doing this work, right? So like any other payments company, we take this very seriously. And for us, it's a way to engage with the long tail that is really in need of very good payment solutions and financial services. For us to be able to go and reach every single SMB and casual seller and freelancer and have them try and integrate with PayPal is going to be an impossible problem to solve. But if you open up our ecosystem to developers and make it attractive for them to come and develop, then they are going to derive value from that integration, make their livelihood from it, and in the process connect customers to us. And they're a great source of feedback as well, which makes it doubly interesting for us, because the way it works inside any big company, you get used to your own dog food in some sense. And you need to feel the discomfort of a customer or a developer shouting and saying, hey, this really,
I can't make
really
this
is
work.
terrible,
Yeah.
right? In some sense, that prods you into action, and that's a healthy way for us to also learn from the ecosystem. So I think the developer evangelism, developer marketing, and the developer-facing work that we do is very, very critical. And there's a lot of room for us to improve in that, for sure.
Yeah, just as Facebook has this network density as its network effect, developers are your network. They just exponentially magnify the
reach.
The reach, the long tail. We mentioned a bit about emerging technologies such as blockchain. So recently we've seen that the Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology, which is an arm of the RBI, they've been working on a model blockchain platform for banking. How is PayPal sort of thinking through newer technologies, particularly distributed ledger technologies such as blockchain?
It's definitely an area that is extremely important to us and very interesting to us, which is why we recently joined the Libra project, Libra consortium with Facebook and other companies. I think our perspective is that these technologies are very much in their infancy, and they do need some amount of time, love, and attention to actually mature into technologies that are going to be viable. What makes these technologies interesting is that until now, the speed of money transfer and transaction has depended on, initially when physical money was the only modus, it was at the speed of human movement, right? And then when it became largely digital, still you needed these intermediaries in the form of the existing banking infrastructure to underwrite these transactions. Because at the end of the day, when digital money is transacted with, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros going across the network and some database entries getting changed, right?
Yeah, your dependencies was the banking infrastructure,
Correct.
Which was slow.
At the speed of the banking infrastructure is what you can transact. And if you're able to disintermediate this and come in with a form of currency, which is cryptocurrency, where the money is programmable and there are no intermediaries to hamper you in any way, if you will, it's a big giant leap for mankind for sure. But then there are some inherent technology challenges in terms of, let's say with Bitcoin, it's unbelievably expensive to mine Bitcoin today, right? You can power a little country for an entire year with what it takes to just mine one Bitcoin.
Massive energy consequences. That's right. As well. Yeah.
So there are lots of challenges that need to be surmounted, and they are being surmounted. So with each generation that this technology goes through change, it will get better, it will get faster, it will get more efficient, and we'll come to a point where it's a very viable way for sellers and buyers to transact. Until now, we don't see on our platform the kind of demand for Bitcoin-based payments, for example, or crypto-based payments. So which is why we have chosen to watch from the sidelines pretty much, if you will. And now that with the Libra consortium, we have a set of amazing companies around the world coming together to try and solve this problem, we feel it's the right time for us to join and lend our significant experience in the payments domain. Because in spite of all of this advances in ledger technology, what makes a financial system run is also an ability to deal with the inherent risk that comes with it in terms of just the prolific fraud that can get perpetrated.
Trust doesn't scale.
That's right. Trust doesn't scale easily. So we have figured this out. We are a trust company, and customers trust us, and that's the business we are in. And we have got a huge amount of information and knowledge over the years that we've existed, which I think we can bring to bear as part of our efforts with the consortium.
Yeah, that also fascinated me because we saw these large companies put skin in the game with their own money, become nodes also commit to engineering the future roadmap of the currency as well.
That's right.
So it's an interesting step to sort of centralize, in some sense, the blockchain, at least on which it will be implemented. What might be interesting is just a hypothetical use case. How easy is it right now for a technology company such as PayPal to launch its own stablecoin for just peer-to-peer transactions? We've been seeing it with JP Morgan launching its own coin just for these inter-department or interbank sort of transactions. What's the tech behind it? How difficult is that?
No, that is not very difficult today. to do. The question is, for any customer to derive value from it, if it's a closed ecosystem and you're just using it between a set of participants, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But the minute you want to take that value and take it out somewhere else, then you come and get into the problem of what is the exchange rate for that?
Yeah.
How do I convert it? Who else will accept it? And and how will it hold value over time, right? Which is
it's a store of value problem. Right. It's an interoperability problem.
Correct.
But the tech not so much.
The tech is not a barrier at all these days. I mean, the next gen blockchain platforms that have emerged after the initial Bitcoin one have solved a lot of the different ways in which you generate trust and security on the platform. Earlier it used to be compute heavy, and now it has become more distributed, and that problem is definitely behind us. But the challenges of acceptability, ubiquity, these are the ones that eventually, will help something succeed.
Yeah, the use case matters more than the tech. You can't build tech for the sake of tech.
That's right.
We mentioned IoT quite briefly, but I know PayPal has been doing some interesting things with IoT, because IoT is essential for creating frictionless connected commerce. What's been your experiments with, say, wearable payment devices or IoT payment gateways? Anything that you've seen that's interesting?
So we have a couple of innovation labs. We in fact have 4 of them: one in Bangalore, one in Chennai. There's one more in Singapore, and one in San Jose, which is our headquarters. So in the innovation labs, this is one of these. This and other problems are the ones that we focus on. We have a very fun and open environment in these labs where people can come together. We've kind of filled these innovation labs with the latest and greatest in technology in terms of having a GPU if somebody wants to run some machine learning models, having Raspberry Pi boards or Arduino boards, or the latest and greatest in terms of crypto software and hardware. So we've got all of these so that people can play with it. Couple of interesting things that came out of this. In Chennai, for example, one of our engineers was experimenting with Alexa and being able to order something on Alexa and say pay with PayPal or pay with Venmo. Yeah. And it was a successful experiment. It actually works, and it's just a matter of it's a skill that we trained Alexa on, and using the APIs, connecting it to PayPal's backend or Venmo's backend to be able to make the money movement. So these are some experiments. And then there's one more where there was an augmented reality, virtual reality use case where you can probably do some shopping virtually. You're wearing
a
headset and you're walking around. Let's say it's a museum where you're trying to buy, or an art show where you're trying to buy some art on the walls. As you walk around, it shows the dollar value of that and also tells you there's a pay with PayPal button. And it was a successful prototype that one of the engineers in Bangalore built and showcased. So there are a lot of different ways in which we are trying to engage with this. But if you look at the hard problems to solve in IoT, they still tend to be the ones around identity. You need to, it's a machine that is transacting on your behalf. Establishing identity and making sure that this is authorized to buy on your behalf is the main challenge to solve, because you could get into a situation where somebody has hacked into the system and is transacting on your behalf through an IoT device without necessarily you being involved in the loop, and that would be a terrible thing. So this is the hard challenge where you can't get it wrong. You have to bulletproof it to a point where there can be no mistakes.
A big chunk of, I think, PayPal's value, like you said, is it's a trust company. People believe in it, and they believe in its algorithms to capture fraud and these risks. For the folks who don't know, how complex is that fraud detection technology? What does it take to power something that big and make sure it's bulletproof? Right.
So I think if you were only doing 2 transactions or 3 transactions, what would be a natural way to do it? You'd just eyeball it. You'd have a human being who would just look at all the transactions and say, hey, this looks fishy, this doesn't look right, or this is fine, right? But you're talking about a system that processes about 32 million transactions a day. On our systems, we pushed $578 billion of payments last quarter. So we are talking last year. So we are talking about a high-scale system that is generating tons of data. And for us to be able to do anything manually is not scalable at all. So it has to be machine-based for sure. And machine-based, but augmented with human intelligence so that the right decisions are being taken and the quality of your decision making is exponentially improving with time, right? So what we have is a system where before the transaction takes place, there are several variables that are already checked. For example, the IP address from where the user is logging in. Is this the same that they typically use? Is it very far away from where they are? Are these websites that they typically buy on? Are these products that they typically search for and buy? All of that. There are thousands of variables that are checked in real time to make sure that you have, before the person clicks the checkout button, you already have a sense of
some level of confidence
yeah. And then during the transaction, there are several models that run to make sure that you have more sophisticated fraud models that are being checked for. For example, one is called collusion fraud, where as a buyer and a seller, we both know each other and we want to defraud the system. And why is this so prevalent? Because PayPal, because of the strength of its risk and security infrastructure, we are able to offer buyer and seller protection. We indemnify the seller against any fraudulent behavior by the customer and vice versa. And so if you're a buyer and you don't like what you got, you can say, hey, this was not what I ordered. Or you can say, I never received the item at all. What if a buyer and a seller collude and say, hey, you know what, let's try and defraud PayPal? So this is where the collusion detection or algorithm has to be very, very sophisticated to see in the universe of buyers and sellers which combination is likely to result in a collusion fraud. And we need to apply this in real time and be able to block it off, because you have 2.5 seconds as the transaction completes to say, no, I'm not allowing this. So the complexity is intense, and the depth and maturity of our machine learning models to actually accomplish this, we have iterated over several generations of building this software, right? We've been around for 20 years now. If you look at the data that we have, it is staggering. So we have close to 300 petabytes of data. And if I were to cast it in very concrete terms, here is what it would look like. If you were to burn that data on DVD drives and stack them up one on top of the other, you're talking about 7 Mount Everests.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's the kind of data that we have. So we can use that data to be very, very sophisticated in our assessment of which transaction is going to actually result in fraud being perpetrated on our system. Which is why our fraud loss rates, any big money movement platform is going to be prone to some level of attack. And our fraud loss rates are less than 1/3 of 1%. And if you look at it, you look at the competition, they're more around 2 to 2.5%. So it's a significantly lower amount of fraud that is perpetrated on our system, which is transacting huge loads of money. And so the strength of our machine learning algorithms is what keeps us afloat as a company, I'd say.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Guru, for taking time out and being with us. I hope this was an interesting conversation for you as well.
Absolutely, Sartaj. It was wonderful chatting with you. Very, very insightful conversation. Great questions. And some of them were very thought-provoking. There were a few gotchas in there I hope I was able to get out of. But I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Thanks. EgoMonk is an impact publisher, bringing organizations closer to the communities they want to serve and the leaders they wish to influence. We combine insight, context, and experience to deliver asymmetric outcomes and are driven by our goal to positively impact 1 billion human lives by 2030. If you would like to collaborate with us, then please visit our website, egomonk.com, or send me an email at sartaj@egomonk.com. And if you like this episode, then please do share it with others and consider rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to your podcasts.